Hello, this is going to be a short video and a bit of an overview on where the New Zealand Cave Karst Project have got to with their Esri online account. About a year ago, early in 2019, we received a grant from Esri for both desktop software and for an online account with 10 or so users and quite a bit of storage. Since then we've moved quite a bit of our data online and spent the year really trying to explore the concepts and ideas and the methods by which we could use the Esri system to present data in a useful way. Much of the work so far really has been around using it as a visual notebook, really. We've been able to explore a number of ideas around where caves are located. We've also managed to locate a number of caves being prompted by trying to put them onto the map and having some amount of information and then actually going into the field looking for them and then putting them on. But in terms of what we've actually got, we have a series of layers of data. As you can see here, we have things like actually cave outlines themselves. We've actually got land parcels, lints you can sign up for and you can get information on landowners. We've got points of interest, including things like cave entrances and general points of interest in the area, and these are all layers that then feed forwards and build up to make a map. The Esri online system, Arc GIS online system, has a very sophisticated online mapping tool in which you can do most of it within the software itself. So picking the main King Country map, which is the one that most of us work with generally at the moment. It's probably our most sophisticated map. We'll see it come up. They actually appear at the last point that somebody else has saved it, so obviously somebody's been working in the Waitomo area near Mudball and Junior. They're definitely a little bit more sophisticated than something like a Google Maps. The Arc GIS Online allows you to put a background layer, and in this case I've got the topo map with actually the geology shown in as a sort of a layer over the top of it with a bit of transparency. The clever thing with the Arc GIS system is that as you zoom in you can set which base map is shown. So here again I'm still in topo, but eventually it starts to come through to the more detailed topo maps, which are again very useful for general area stuff. And then eventually it takes you further and further in until you actually start to get to the aerial photos themselves, and we can start to see some of the line data that we've got as well. In this case it's some of the boundaries. And of course onto that we've then added the cave data in the background. If we start to have a look at some of the things that might be interesting, we go back to the main Waitomo area, which probably has more of the data at the moment. So as we look at an area that's slightly more populated with data, you can see these layers appearing behind with known cave entrances, and here we've also got the cave outlines. They've been traced through from cave survey maps which were geolocated onto the landscape and then made into shape files and further into layers. And again, this starts to produce some really interesting results. You can see exactly where caves are, not only on the landscape in general, but you can also start to zoom in, and some of them really are surprisingly accurate in terms of where they are with the dolans behind. As I say, it was really intended as a visual notebook. So we've also added additional layers that have become useful to us. We have access routes, and these are the dotted lines here. They can simply be drawn on the map, and points of interest. Here there's the standard car parking space, or place should I say, for Waitomo Waterfall. Again, a piece of information that many cavers would find useful, and we've slowly added that up with farmhouses and various other locations. The system as well is reasonably sophisticated. You can look for a given location if you've had it in your GPS. So here I've got a couple of locations. I can simply cut and paste them in and look for them. This one's actually the car park for Junior. But you can also search for caves themselves. So if I wanted to search for Burr, it will find the Burr cave entrance for me in the total list of entrances I have. So again, it's a nice system, starting to become quite useful. At the moment, it really extends in terms of geographic coverage as far south as Mokow, and really as sort of as far north as Port Waikato, really. They're getting sparser and sparser at both ends. The team at the moment, people like Dave Meikle, myself, Jonathan Davis, Dave Ellicott and others really are more interested in the King Country at this stage. So we're pretty much limited to that, limited ourselves to that. Of course, once you've got the data in there, you can actually represent it in a number of different ways. You don't have to make the data up again each time, you can simply just draw it as different maps. And if I go back to the gallery, we have several different types, most of these evolving at the moment as people and users join the group and want to use it in different ways. We have things like owner maps. So here we'd actually use the power of the geographic information system itself to add land parcels together to make them into farm boundaries. And we're slowly going through and starting to add in farm owners where we know them that have cave on their land. At this stage it's by no means complete and is more a conceptual thing at this point, but in the end the idea is to have detailed ownership so that we could then work out who we need to contact if we want to go and get onto the land, or if there's any environmental issues. Again, you would have some idea of who owns the land. Even at the moment though, all of them actually have a list of owners behind. It's from the Lints data, so as you can see often it's quite generic. Though we know it's Stephen Bodie, but it's actually in part of his trust as well. Others are more specific and some are quite confusing when the land ownership is more complicated, sometimes with 30 or 40 owners. Similarly, we've also got a couple of other specialized maps. We've started to produce prospecting maps for individuals where they want to work on a particular area. People in the Wairoa area are interested in obviously their area itself and how it relates to the landscape. So we've started making maps for them as well. So here a slightly simpler map. It really is just cave locations sitting on top of the topo map, and then with the aerial photos behind. And then slightly more sophisticated ones where we've started to allow people to put in prospecting information themselves. So again, evolving, but gives people the idea of what is actually possible with these maps. So here we have maps with various types of data points on. The colour actually represents whether they're sort of private data, public, intended to go onto these larger scale maps that maybe more users can view. And then at the moment we also have restricted information, the red dots, again intended really that somebody's found something that they want recorded but don't want shown to large numbers of people. And again, this map is really more about trying to explore some of these ideas. But again, it's using the mapping system as a visual notebook to see what's actually been explored, what hasn't been explored, does and doesn't go. I suppose the final questions are, where are we going to go in with 2020? As you can probably see from some of the black lines and the cave lines in the background, we've put on quite a number. Dave Meikle's been very studious at doing this. It's actually quite laborious tracing some of the outlines even with some of the automated software. So we're going to keep moving with that and try and populate it, spread south towards Maricopa, and try and tidy up a few of them in the Waitomo area. But he's made a very good go at Waitomo headwaters, Mangafitikau and things like that as well at this point. We've also got some data on here now. Dave Ellicott's been working hard on actually cave locating underground features using a system from the Australians, and we've started to tie some of those locations on to ground truth some of the stuff. And I think the other one that we're very interested in is dye tracing and hydrology information. We're not entirely sure how we're going to represent that on the maps, but of course we've got a lot of lovely features. Here's a great example. We've got streams going underground in caves like Lemberg's, progressing all the way through the system, being joined by others, and then appearing out in the Mangafitikau Gorge. Guildford's is a great example here, more recently by the club. We know it comes out in the gorge, clearly a lot of cave missing, and again it would be very interesting. Similarly, things like Digme, we also know go under the quarry there and actually come out in the resurgence probably. So again, it's trying to understand the way by which you can represent these on the maps, and it'll really start to be very useful, not only in prospecting and also environmental. So there's still a lot to do, and there's quite a lot to do in terms of data security and things like that as well. And again, they're the types of things we'll be looking at in 2020. How can we allow potentially more people access, or certainly give data from the system out to people so they can go off and do their own prospecting and then feed data back into it. But yes, good progress for the year, and thanks for all the sponsorship from NZSS on allowing us to have the Esri software.